What's up, Internet, and welcome to JD Like Science, the channel where I tell you about the science news stories that I thought were interesting last week. So the first news story that I find just absolutely fascinating, I don't know if anybody else does, is that there's a new hole in the sun, and I think this is just super interesting because like this big flaming ball of gas in the sky has like a sun. That doesn't make sense. Has a hole in it. I don't know how that's possible, but it is. So between the 17th and the 19th of May, NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory discovered an image of a new, quite large hole in the sun. It's called a coronal hole, which is basically just a region of low density in the sun's surface. So it's pretty much not a hole through the sun, but it's still considered a hole nonetheless. Now you can't see this hole, so please don't look at the sun trying to see a hole in the sun, because you ain't gonna find it. You just ain't. So these coronal holes are responsible for many things like high solar winds, which interrupt radio frequencies, and they mess with your cell phones, and they damage satellites. Rest in peace, satellites. Although they're also responsible for some beautiful wonders called the auroras, southern and northern lights, which are pretty. It is still unclear what causes these holes. Now the next little bit of science news that I wanted to share with the world, I don't know if any of you heard, but a study done by the National Toxicology Program has determined that cell phones don't lead to cancer. You've all heard this myth, and most of us just brush it off as BS, and guess what? You can do that actually now. They tested this myth using all sorts of rats. Ew. And they determined there is absolutely no correlation between cancer and cell phone use, so just keep on chatting away. And moving right along to our next science story, we may have found water on the moon. Prior to these findings, there hasn't been any conclusions drawn on whether or not there is water on the moon. Our astronomers Anthony Case and Justin Casper have, along with a team of astronomers, proposed a new instrument called the Crater, which is the cosmic ray telescopes for the effects of radiation. This instrument basically measures the strength of protons coming from the lunar surface, and they're basically comparing it to the strength of protons emitted from hydrogen generated from their test generated in a lab. And they have found the presence of hydrogen on the moon. So these results are still being investigated, so whether or not this means there's water on the moon, who knows. But we're getting there. And the fourth and final news story that I found interesting this week was 4 new periodic elements have received names. So you might as well all throw away your chemistry textbooks and your periodic tables because they're all wrong now. Elements 113, 115, 117, and 118, who currently have temporary placeholder names that I have no idea how to pronounce. They've got lots of U's in them. Reminds me of like, what's that one Pokemon, Uno or whatever from Pokemon? Yeah, it's those. They are now receiving permanent names. Excuse my mispronunciation. Nihonium, being named from Japan. It's the first element to be named from Japan. Moscovium, being named from Russia, hence Moscow, Moscovium. Tennessine, being named from Tennessee. And Oganesson, one of the only other elements named after a scientist, Yuri Oganessian, who helped discover at least 3 of the last elements. However, the names are not final. The decision is going to be made by the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry in November on whether or not the names are going to stick. Until then, the public has several months, 5 months, to object to the names. I think that's kind of cheap. I don't think it should be called considered an element if you can't like find it, you know? My opinion. So those are all the science news stories that I've got for you this week. Tune in every Monday to hear what I think is interesting that's happening in the science world. I will be posting new videos every Monday. Please comment, like, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys next week.